Welcome in, everybody, to the Two for Talking podcast. I'm your host, Corey Tusick. I've got Joe Bartnick he's not with The Athletic. He's a comedian. That would be quite a switch up. I don't want to see Josh on stage. We've got Josh Yohe, the comedian. Joe Bartnick, the comedian, Josh Yohe with The Athletic. Gentlemen, the meme that I thought of immediately watching the Penguins this week was the Bart Simpson sitting there and Homer, Bart saying, "It's the worst day of my life." And he goes, "The worst day of your life so far." Each loss just keeps getting worse. They did stave off, the Sharks on Saturday, but it was not a great week in Penguin land, was it?
Well, no, it certainly wasn't, Corey. I think when everybody looked at the schedule this week, they said, all right, Red Wings at home, at Columbus. They never lose there. And then you got the Sharks at home. Now that's a chance to make some hay. That's a chance to make a little dent in the standings and maybe salvage the season a little bit. And instead, they only get 3 out of 6 points. The first game against Detroit, 1 shot on goal in the first 13 minutes, which was only 2 days after the embarrassment against Dallas. And Columbus they got absolutely destroyed. That was embarrassing. Jari gives up 2 goals on the first 3 shots because, we knew that would happen. Then you almost you do blow a 3-0 lead to the Sharks. And, yeah, you get the 2 points, but that had to be the least satisfying 2 points that the Penguins have had in a long time. Joe, you're an optimistic man by nature. I love that about you. You better try to make the people listening feel some optimism about this team because it's hard to see a lot of hope right now.
The hope is just enjoying hockey. Hope you see some sparks. You hope you see goal number 600. I was in the building on Monday night for that debacle. I knew Dallas was good. I think we both picked them to win the West. I didn't think they were that good. I mean, that was a debacle. But then Wednesday, we got to see the incredible ceremony with Evgeny Malkin. I mean, everybody loves Gino. That should be a sitcom back in, Moscow. I forget the exact town he's from. Magnitogorsk. I didn't forget. I just didn't know how to say it without sounding like a complete moron. But I just did. Anyway, I'm so good at being a moron. It should rolls off my tongue. No, but that was amazing. I really loved the ceremony. It was just great. It's a great seeing his family. And then you got to see the Rusty Razor pull off his fine the Rusty Razor moves. But then they ended up losing. And what are you going to do? I thought for sure Gino scored in the overtime and it brought the house down. And it was and that crowd seemed a little sparse than what the numbers said. I happened to be in a bar in Pittsburgh where it was a hip bar. So that bartender said watching the Penguin game, wanted to watch the 9 hours prelims of the Tyson debacle. And then as me and some radio personalities and some other people in town were like, well, let's go to this bar and watch the game. It was 2-0. Like, it's like, oh wait, the Penguins caught up 2-2. Then it's 5-2. Okay, let's sit here and enjoy our drinks. I did watch the recap. I watched the whole game again because I'm not much of a masochist. But then Saturday night, I remember telling Borky, let's get 6 out of 6 points. He was 5 out of 6. I'm like, if we have to go to overtime with the Sharks, I'm gonna jump off a bridge. Thank God I flew out of town in time to watch the game back in California, so there was no bridges except the Golden Gate Bridge. That's a long drive. But we blew that 3-goal lead. But it was nice. But it was nice to see Gino finally score, and Sid, my dad's biggest gripe. They never score on the shootouts, so they scored. Maybe we won the shootout because Letang had the sniffles. If Letang was in there, I'm sure we would have lost the shootout. But I mean, it's what. But the best thing is we get the young kids playing. I love seeing Pickering. I begged for 5 weeks. Pickering's the best defenseman we have. You know what? He was the best defenseman we have. All right, I was long-winded there. But that's my optimism. I thought Ponomarenko played pretty good, and it's a new era.
Joe, it was one game, so I don't want to get too excited, but I legitimately thought Owen Pickering was the best defenseman on the ice for the Penguins on Saturday. I thought he was good. He was solid. I want to see more of him. That was encouraging, and of course, since we last got together on this fine program, the Penguins did trade Lars Eller to the Washington Capitals, and it certainly makes you wonder what other moves might be on the way. and just looking at the direction of the team, like, hey, it's hockey. You don't know what's going to happen. They could win 3 or 4 in a row, and all of a sudden, like, hey, game on. Maybe we have a chance to do something this season. Anything can happen, but I think it's clear at this point that the front office is saying, okay, it's time to probably get rid of some more veterans. It's time to let these young kids play. I thought they both acquitted themselves very nicely against the Sharks. It makes you want to see the young guys more. And there's something exciting about that, I think, for a fan base. And this is a tough sell because this is a fan base that is used to seeing Stanley Cups and some of the greatest players of all time. So, just to get excited about what's coming from Wilkes-Barre, maybe that doesn't, stir the drink that hard. But I'll tell you what, I don't think anybody wants to watch the old guys just keep stumbling around. And there's no future with Noel Acciari and Kevin Hayes, and everybody knows that. So I do think there's some excitement to see the young guys come up. I think we'll see more on the way. But before we get to that, Joe, kind of all over the place here because, boy, there's a lot to talk about. I guess I have to ask you your thoughts on Tristan Jarry. The long-awaited return, he gave up, I think it was 5 goals on 39 shots. And certainly the Penguins played horribly in front of him in Columbus. I don't think anybody would deny that. And yet at the same time, it's still the first shot, first goal, 2 out of 3. And I know people say it was a deflection. Like, you're allowed to stop those 2. I still have to feel like it was a disappointing performance all the way around for Jarry. I'm sure we'll see him play again this week, but it's hard to feel too good about him right now, isn't it?
When you give up the first shot, I mean, yikes. I thought the third one or the fourth one were bad, just bad. So there's 2 right there. He's always great when he's already losing,
Yeah, when the pressure's off, right?
Yeah. He's the guy that gets, the 2 RBI double when you're winning 7-2. I've said it before. My thoughts on him, I'd say goodbye. Robidas Island, whatever it is. Goodbye. We can finish last without you. Enjoy Wilkes-Barre.
Yeah, I don't think we're far from that point. I think they're going to let him play some more just to try to let him figure it out, which I understand. And it's not like the other options are necessarily great. Ned has been okay, but, I hate to use a cliche, but he is what he is. He's just kind of an average NHL goalie, for better or worse. That's Ned, which is to say he's better than Jarry right now for sure. But he's not the kind of guy you need to throw out there 60 times a season either. So Blomqvist is back in Wilkes-Barre. That's fine. I think he has talent. I think he clearly is an NHL goaltender. Given the current circumstances, though, I understand them wanting just to let him play every night in the American Hockey League, let him work on his game a little bit. We will certainly see him up here again at some point. Joe, don't you find it's hard, though, to gauge the Penguins goaltenders? Because the opportunities they allow are so extreme compared to other teams. And I'm not saying that to defend Jarry in particular. I'm certainly not. He needs to be way better. But man, they're hard to gauge, aren't they?
They are. I have 2 points. One is, I think that's of every disappointment of since we last spoke. I just think Blomqvist just getting shelled like he was on D-Day. It was Veterans Day. He took a lot of shrapnel. I think that was the most disappointing aspect of the whole week because I really have I still have high hopes for him. I think it was just Dallas is just they are the best team in the West probably. So
they're good.
I don't hold that really on him. I mean, anybody on a roster could have got shelled. And the whole team played terribly. I mean, when Gino's apologizing, he only apologized like twice a year, so that was one of them. What concerns me is, a lot of our goaltenders, especially Ned, make the heroic save. They make the Patrick Waugh save. They just don't make the regular save, and that's Jarry's biggest problem to me. Is just stop the one you're supposed to when it's nothing.
Yeah, no, that's right. He's the shortstop who can make the spectacular play, but the routine ground ball goes right between the legs. And you're right. And that's always been my biggest problem with Tristan. Like, there are a lot of things you can say about goaltenders, good and bad. But if I'm playing for the Penguins, my ultimate thought on Tristan Jarry is I can't trust you. And if you can't trust your goaltender, like I've had so many former NHL players, as Borky, as Bob Berry, any of these guys, they will tell you when you are playing in a hockey game and you don't really trust your goaltender to bail you out or to be there for in the big moments, you got nothing. You just have nothing. I've had those guys tell me about, the second Tommy Barrasso showed up in Pittsburgh, they felt like 10 feet taller because they knew they trusted their goaltender. They knew they had something there. When you don't have that, it really does have an impact on an entire hockey team. So, Jarry went to Wilkes-Barre. He was pretty good down there, but that's the American Hockey League. That's a different world. He comes up and it's just the same old story with him. I don't know what you do with him at this point. I don't know if it's as simple as just buying him out or obviously they would trade him if they could. I can't imagine there are any takers. I think literally the only way you trade Tristan Jarry is if you end up like trading Sidney Crosby to somebody, say, hey, by the way, you got to take this guy too. Like that's the only way I can conceive of. That's not going to happen. So they're in a terrible spot with him right now. But I don't know. It was you could feel it coming before the game in Columbus. You just felt whenever he came back into the lineup, the same thing was going to happen.
I wish there was a way to bet on giving up a goal on the first shot because I would have bet that with my entire bankroll.
There's so many things I want to attach to what you just said. First, the whole thing of like when you don't trust your goaltender. Well, they certainly playing like they trust their goaltender because they're not playing any more defense.
That's true.
It's not like Mario and the boys thought, oh, well, Tommy will save us. Let's all be up ice.
That's a good point. They are playing like 100%. They really trust him, like he's the best goaltender in the league. And Joe, you could probably speak to this because I mean, talking about the defense and everything, but I've watched a couple other NHL games, and I'm sure you watch a ton more than I do. Penguins fans need to watch other NHL games to remember what real defense is supposed to be played like. Like, it's not normal to give up the number of odd man rushes that they're giving. Like, we become numb to it.
It's not normal at all.
We really have. I just think, I think I said at least a couple of weeks ago, if not last week, if I said it last week, I just, don't like the board work. I mean, Malkin made a great play on the board. I think it was against San Jose. Just, and that's winning hockey. And I definitely said this in the last couple of weeks. Bad teams are bad in the second period. And the Penguins are awful in the second, because that's when everything is exposed. Your bad changes, your discipline, your fifth and sixth defensemen, your third and fourth lines. That's when it gets exposed. And it always happens to us in the second period. I knew this a couple of weeks ago because I did the research on it. Isn't it if Jarry goes to Wilkes-Barre, he's not off the cap by any means, but some of it is off the cap.
A little bit.
Yeah, and I just think you're not stopping the puck, son. I mean, I hate to do it to Bloomquist. I hate to throw him in the Lions cage, but maybe send the other guy in Wilkes-Barre down to Wheeling. I don't know, and get another guy. Get Soupy in here. Campbell's free. I don't know. I mean, it's like at some point you got to stop the puck. At some point you get 18,000 people. At some point someone wants to save. I know how you can play him at home. I said, hey, you can't play against Detroit because the Brinkat and Larkin, they're not up in Binghamton.
Right.
So he had to stop them. So he couldn't stop Columbus. You talk about that's the JV team, Josh.
And by the way, they specifically started him on the road in his first game back just to protect him a little bit, knowing full well that the home crowd would be all over him. So, I guess that was a nice thought on the Penguins' part, trying to be gentle with him. It did not work. It didn't work by a long shot, in fact.
There's nothing gentle, Josh. There's nothing more gentle. It's like he didn't have to get on a plane. Like, he couldn't have found an easier way to get back into the National Hockey League.
No.
And that was literally the worst team he could find that he could like take public transportation to.
And maybe some people don't care about this. I noticed this more because of my line of work. But did you hear what he said after the game? Like he blamed everyone but himself, like he always does. He said, "Oh, we had trouble defending them, and they got the loose pucks before we did, and I was screened on the second goal, and the first goal was a deflection." Like, we know. Like I always tell people, like, Ben Roethlisberger would do this thing. It was very disingenuous. He would throw for 500 yards and touchdowns, and if the Steelers would lose, he'd always say, "It's my fault. I got to be better." And you knew he was full of shit, but he would say it. And teammates appreciate that. And Jari just has never really seemed to understand that very well. There's not a lot of accountability there. And if I look at this from the Penguins' perspective, we all know what's going on here. You can call it a rebuild. You can call it a mini rebuild, a reload, whatever. Now, the Penguins are in sell mode right now. And I know for a fact that people in the organization are afraid to phrase it that way because they don't want to lose the fan base or irritate the fan base. I am of the belief the fan base would be perfectly okay with them coming out and saying this. I think the fan base would get behind it. In fact, I really believe that. What the fan base won't get behind is just the status quo and Kyle Dubas saying nothing and just letting everything keep going on, like nothing to see here, nothing to see here. We're just trying to win hockey games when everybody can see how badly they're struggling. So I think Kyle needs to come out at some point with some kind of a plan, both for the goaltending and for the team in general. Just be very open with it. Penguins fans aren't stupid. They get it. They understand the cyclical nature of the National Hockey League, but they can't just keep doing the same thing and playing the same guys and keep throwing Tristan Jarry out there game after game if he's going to keep doing this.
That's what I wanted to get to, because there's a lot of news out of Canada that says that Dubas went to the meetings and said everyone's on the table except Sidney Crosby. I don't know if you heard that, but it seemed more than one person has said that.
Well, let me jump in real quick, Joe. I just published an article about this less than an hour ago.
So I didn't see it because I am a member of the Athletic, Corey. I'm not on the writing staff. I'm a paid in full member.
It's still morning in California, Joe. I wouldn't have expected you to read it just yet, but I can tell you, obviously, Sid's not going anywhere, and Evgeny Malkin's not either. I don't know where it came from that it just said Evgeny Malkin's not going anywhere. They don't want to trade him. He doesn't want to be traded. He has a no-trade clause. Those two are off the table. Anyone else? I'm sure Kyle would be willing to listen. That's certainly the impression I'm under.
Well, let's say that that was my argument or my point, and I'm not arguing. I don't agree. I was like, everybody's not on the table because first of all, Malkin's their best player right now.
Yes.
So they get rid of him. What are they going to do? And then I think I know I'm a rusty guy. But you got to keep one guy that's the link back to winning. So in 5 years, when he's wearing the C, and you can bring your kids, Corey, and my daughter, it's like, hey, yeah, this guy, Josh, you bring your kids. It's like, hey, yeah, this guy played with Sid and Gino. He's the link, you know?
Let me say about him, for those who don't know, he still has 1 year left on his contract where he has a full no-trade clause. That's in effect until July 1st of next year. So he would have to okay any trade. And from everything I have heard, Kyle Dubas is not interested in trading him right now. He's not going to ask him to waive that clause. And I don't think Brian Rust would waive that clause. He and his wife just bought a house in Pittsburgh. In fact, it was Jake Gensel's house, which is kind of funny. He loves it here. I think Rust is, he's from Michigan. I think he really considers himself a Pittsburgher. He is as loyal as it gets. He is a Penguin. He is a very proud Pittsburgh Penguin. I don't think he wants to go anywhere. And also this, you have to have somebody for the big guys to play with. You can't just strip them of everyone. If you're going to trade Raquel, which certainly could happen, you can't trade Brian Rust too in the same season.
Well, absolutely. Well, besides having someone for the Sid and Gino to play with, they have to have someone for fans to go see.
Yeah.
I mean, in the Athletic, there was the big attendance article, and the Penguins were in the three teams that have the sharpest decline in attendance.
It's not good. And you saw it in person, Joe. It's not pretty right now.
It wasn't pretty. And I'll tell you, the number they gave was like, that's not who was in there. It looked like 10,000 people, not 15,000 people. Now now it seemed like there was more people on Wednesday than there was Monday, but I could have been wrong because the person was like, yeah, because everybody left after it was 5-0. So
Right.
but then I guess they had 18,000 for the Grateful Dead. I don't know. I wasn't there, so
They did it. Well, it's funny with the Penguins attendance. So much of it is just based on the day of the week. They could be playing the Johnstown Chiefs, and if it were a Sunday afternoon, it would sell out.
And they would lose if Jari played goal.
They certainly go up a goal in the first shot anyway.
Yeah.
But Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday nights are really hard for them to sell tickets. And honestly, this might sound a little yinzer of me, but that's okay. I'm from Pittsburgh, so I guess I am a yinzer. Tickets are way too expensive. I mean, they're outrageously expensive. And I know that's an NHL thing. The Penguins have some of the higher ticket prices in the entire league. I think they're second or third most expensive in all American markets. That could fly for a long time when they were winning cups and when the big guys were in their prime and they were one of the best teams in the league. They're going to have to do something about that just to get asses in the seats at this point.
Well, I will say this, that Pro Hockey News there was mix up. I didn't get any press passes. StubHub, I got really nice seats for $13.
Oh yeah,
two games in a row. Now the StubHub charged me like an extra double the price, but because they
have a way of doing that. Yes,
that's what StubHub does. But that's the secondary market is where to go. Sorry Penguins, but it's the truth. I mean, as long as it's that expensive, it's crazy.
No, it's outrageous how expensive ticket prices are. So they need to do something about that because nobody wants to come see this team right now. It's a great fan base. It's kind of where the Pirates are. Joe, I know you don't like talking Pirates, but very briefly, as you know, the Pirates don't sell tickets, but their TV ratings are still really, really good locally. And it's going to be the same thing with the Penguins. Everyone cares. They still want to watch. They'll still read the articles. They'll still talk about the Penguins and listen to games. They don't want to spend $200-300 to go see the Penguins lose 7-1 to Dallas on a Monday night. I completely understand that.
I mean, I think the damage done by the opening night ass kicking by the Rangers is going to be felt until after Christmas.
No, you might be right. And we said that at the time, like, man, if you're, it's home opener, you're excited to see hockey, and then you watch that, you're going to say, let's shell out another $500 and bring the kids back next month to a game. A lot of people are going to say no. Are the corporate sponsors there going to say, oh, yeah, we're going to throw our money into this product right now? Maybe not. It was only one game, but it certainly got your attention, and it's not like the Penguins have played a whole lot better since then.
No, and I think that's 1,000% why you'll, as much as Gino is the best player, you'll never see Gino go.
No, I mean, Sid and Gino are still a reason for corporations to come spend money. There's still a reason for a lot of fans to go to a game, as they should be. I mean, decades from now, you're going to say, well, that team sucked, but we still got to see Sidney Crosby. I remember going to games in 2003 just to see 66 play. Like, those teams weren't any good. It was still 66. Crosby and Malkin have that same impact on people. And from a business standpoint, they remain, I think, incredibly vital to the Penguins. They always will be, but especially until a new wave of talent comes along that gets the city excited, and that will happen at some point. But right now, it's just not the case.
Hey, I saw an incredible 500 goal ceremony.
Yeah.
Once the two big boys go, you're going to be waiting a long, long, long time for a big ceremony.
No, that's reality. It is. And a lot of people complain about the nostalgia tour, but the nostalgia is all we have right now with this team to get excited about. It really is.
It's the Antiques Roadshow. I will say this, though. I was a big Lars Eller guy. Mm-hmm. I like Lars. I know you like him too, Josh.
Oh, yeah.
I know Dubas wanted to look like he was doing something. I don't think he got enough for Lars. I think Lars was the one guy that you could have kept until the deadline and had everyone at TSN losing their minds at 5 to noon, because a very good third line center who's won cups. Those go for higher than the fifth and a third, in my opinion. But
my only problem with the third is it's like 3 years from now. You'd like it a little sooner than that. I know what you mean, and the way Eller was playing too, you wonder if the Penguins might have been able to generate a little bit of a bidding war for him down the road. Because you're right. If we get to, February 20th and you're a legitimate Stanley Cup team, I don't care. You know the big teams. Name one of them. If you're the Toronto Maple Leafs, you think you could like to have Lars Eller on your roster? Of course you would. Of course you would. And it is odd, I thought, that Kyle pulled the trigger that quickly. Maybe part of it was doing a favor to Eller, who, of course, is from Washington, and I'm sure was happy to return there. But this isn't the favor business. This is the trying to make your hockey team better business. And I also think, Joe, part of this trade and the timing of it was to get the team's attention a little bit. Said, hey, I'll trade more of you. This is the way it's going to be.
Yes, but let's say, other than Raquel playing with, if it's the big line or just Sid stays warm, other than him on a heater, I just think Eller's the only marketable guy. I think he's the only guy somebody wants. I mean, the way Patterson's playing, I heard some people saying that he's playing pretty good. I know you haven't, but what?
Well, he's not playing well, but I still think they could get something for him. I still think teams will be very interested in Marcus Pettersson. No, he's not playing well at all, but I also think there's a perception around the league from people I've discussed that he's playing with Erik Karlsson or Chris Letang every night. And those guys are so bad that they're literally dragging him down with them a little bit. Like, Marcus is a pretty respected guy around the league.
Okay.
I mentioned in my article, I know for a fact there are two teams already are interested in him. That's the Edmonton Oilers and the Vancouver Canucks. And I suspect there will be others. But yeah, Pettersson and Raquel are clearly the two most likely guys to go, in my opinion. And you could get something for them. The question is what? And in Raquel's case, at least you would get out from that contract, which I don't think is a great contract, really. That would help. But clearly they're in a position where they're trying to acquire some assets, as they should be.
Yeah, as soon as I saw the Lars Eller trade, my first thought was, God, I wonder if Washington tanks and then they flip them at the trade deadline for better picks, and we look even dumber. But I wanted to ask you guys, and Josh, I mean, I know you weren't not in the room to see this, but is Dubas going to start doing the, Moneyball, all right, you're not going to play the young guys, Sully, then I'm just throwing the old guys out the bus as we drive to the next game.
I don't know about that, because Dubas is the one who signed the old guys. I mean, he brought in Nola Chari. He traded for Kevin Hayes. He's brought in all of these veteran guys, Lars Eller and some others. So I don't think it's that. But at some point, we know the Penguins need to start playing the young guys, not for the sake of this season, but for the sake of inspiring a little bit of help down the road and trying to figure out what you have in these young guys and how good they may be moving forward, getting them that taste of National Hockey League action. So, for years, everybody has said, well, Sully is, he's against playing young players. And I think to some extent that was true and that was fair. But I also think he just thought the young players sucked. He can come out and say that. But I think he looked at what was going on in Wilkes-Barre, like, why would I want any of these guys? Whereas now I think you have some guys that are more highly regarded, in prospect circles. Like, these are actually first-round picks, like Owen Pickering. There are some guys with some real talent who came to Pittsburgh in the Jake Ensel trade. So I think at this point, you'll probably see him start to deploy more young players, as he should. And the Dubas-Sullivan dynamic is interesting, because even going back before the season, guys, Sullivan always thinks his team's going to be great. Like, that's how he's wired. And I think it's sincere. He's just always thinking, how can we win each game? How can we win the Stanley Cup? He's the eternal optimist in a way. Dubas really tried to temper expectations at his preseason press conference. You could tell that he was thinking to himself, I'm not so sure we're that good, and all these people think we're going to have some kind of bounce-back season. I don't think he felt great about the team before the season, which is kind of an interesting situation when you consider he is the guy who constructed it.
Yes, and I also think that I think they could be better if they wouldn't blow so many 2-goal leads.
Wouldn't that be something?
I mean, I know it's not 1974, but a 2-goal lead should at least get you a couple loser points.
Could not agree more. How many 2-0 leads have they won? Like 5 or 6, I think, already?
I think it's 6.
6,
I think it's 6 and 4 2-0 leads. I mean, I think the goaltending and the too high priced defensemen have been so bad. That's what's really sunk the ship. And none of us saw that coming. We thought, oh, Carlson, maybe a bounce back. Maybe he's going to be, Paul Martin and have a bounce back season. Or even Gaunt stumbled his first year. That didn't happen. And Letang is, this is saying something, the worst hockey of his career. And that's a bold statement because he's had some bad slumps. But I think that's really, really undermined a lot of things, because I remember about a month ago, I thought all of the forwards except for Bunning kind of played above their pay grade. And I'll tell you, Bunning, you talk about wiping off a highlight reel goal. He's not a winning hockey player. And I've said this for 3 goddamn years. I saw it in Toronto. I watched all their games, and I didn't pay attention in Carolina. But it's like, how are you that far offsides when you're with Evgeny Malkin? What are you thinking?
I was shocked they didn't blow the play dead initially. I was sitting there thinking, like, when Malkin scored, I was thinking to myself, don't celebrate. That had to be 5 feet offside. Like, why did the whistle not blow? Very strange, and completely agree. I was wrong about Carlson. I actually wrote an article when they traded for Carlson saying, this is great. This guy was born to be a Penguin. He plays just like the Penguins historically. I was wrong. He wasn't what they needed. He's not playing at a high level at all. He's not really getting any better. He's borderline painful to watch at times, Joe. And as for the Penguins turning things around right now, I just don't see it happening. I guess stranger things have happened. But as I wrote after the game in Columbus, people say this can't be a bottom 5 team because you got Crosby and Malkin, you got the stars, to which I say, are you so sure this can't be a bottom 5 team? Because it looks like a bottom 5 team to me right now. They're just so bad defensively. The goaltending's so bad. The depth is so bad. That's a hell of a combination.
That's what I don't get. Can you just instill a 1-2-2? I mean, I know it's like, around people around the city, like, why can't they stay back? And this, now I'm flabbergasted. You're up 2-0. Can you at least get through the first period before it's 2-2? Like, can we get to a commercial break? I don't understand why guys can't stay back. I would have martial law that unless you're Erik Karlsson, stay the F back.
I'd be okay with that. And that's clearly not what Sully wants. And that's very confusing to me. In fact, it was the 3rd goal in Columbus when Karlsson got trapped. Blue Jackets got a 3-on-1 and they scored. That was the game-winning goal. After the game, Sullivan specifically pointed toward the forwards, basically blaming them for the goal because they didn't rotate quickly enough back when Karlsson got trapped. It's like, I understand. He was talking about Malkin specifically. I understand what he's saying, but maybe the defensemen don't need to pinch as often as they do, because clearly they don't pinch at the right times. They don't have a great instinct for it. And clearly the forwards are not good enough defensively to cover for them. So why put them in that position every single game? It's just baffling to me.
And it wasn't Noel Acciari. It wasn't Blake Lizotte. It was Evgeny Malkin. For 10 years, have you ever seen him rotate back?
No. And by the way,
or be effective when he does.
That was right after a penalty kill. So actually, he was on the ice with Crosby and Raquel. So why would he be thinking about defensive responsibilities when they clearly were put out there to go generate offense? Nothing about that sequence made a whole lot of sense to me.
And do you think Sullivan, I mean, we could go on and on about this, but just quickly, I know Sullivan, FSG doesn't want to get rid of him, all that kind of stuff. But after Friday, I was like, it's almost like he's trying to test that theory. Like, oh, let's see how far I can go before I get fired. Like I don't know. And when they blew the 3-goal lead on Saturday, I was like, oh God, like, I don't know. This might be it.
I remember thinking, Joe, after they blew the 3-0 lead, like, this is the kind of week that gets coaches fired. It really is. And in Penguins history, if you know your Penguins history at all, and Joe, I know you do, and I know you do too, Corey, Sullivan's staying power is incredible because they would have fired him 10 times by this point. Historically speaking, the way that they've always valued trades, or coaches rather, we know NHL teams in general like to fire coaches pretty quickly. The Penguins are an extreme measure of that in their history. You never last more than 3 years if you're their head coach. Sully's going on almost a decade now. And this doesn't look like a well-coached team, and it's a team that's a mess. So it is interesting to see just how much power he has.
Penguins history, just hockey history. Yeah. And a lot of people go on my timelines and speak to me, and it's like any other coach in any other situation would have been canned by now. And they're absolutely right. But to throw a little Tomlin at you, who can you get that's better? Because I think I think the real big, a lot of the big guys got sopped up, our Rick Tockett's, our Berubis.
Yeah.
And then after that, who are you? You get Coach. You think Coach Q is going to come back for this? I mean, it's like, so in a way, you might as well just keep Gino and Sid happy. It's really on Dubas to find a better team. Now, I mean, sure, can these guys listen? Can Sullivan make a couple tweaks? Yeah. But until he finds a way to figure out how to get rid of Jari, and until he finds a way to either to find some younger guys or bring them up, I mean, Toe Blake's not going to turn this around.
Yeah, that's right. That's our first Toe Blake reference of the day. I like that.
I'm always good for a Toe Blake.
I like that about you. No, you're right. And I think the bigger picture here, and I know a lot of fans don't want to hear this, but they're probably not going to be very good the next couple of years. We know that. Think about 3-4 years from now, when we always talk about when the new wave comes, when maybe they get a couple of top 5 picks, a couple of big time prospects, whatever. This generation of Penguins shows up. Who do you want coaching the team at that time? If the answer is still Mike Sullivan, if you think that highly of him, then maybe they do. That's the guy you want coaching these new young guys when they finally show up. Then I guess you keep him and you just deal with a couple of bad years. I guess that's in play. I don't know why he would want to do that. Mike Sullivan is an intensely loyal man. I know that. And Crosby and Malkin and Letang have all told me he's the last coach they ever want to have. But if you're him, you could name your job. You could find a ready-made team for you. That would sound a lot more pleasing than going through 2 or 3 years of a miserable rebuild.
And I don't want Quinn being the coach. He's bottomed out twice.
Yeah, what's he done, really? Like I had somebody email me, David Quinn should be the coach now. Fire Sullivan. Like, why? Well, nothing against David Quinn, but what are his credentials compared to how things gone for him his last few years wherever he's been?
He didn't win in New York, and he didn't rise. I know San Jose's a dumpster fire, but they're doing a little better this year.
Yeah.
And he hasn't been the Erik Karlsson whisperer, that's for sure. And he hasn't in the power play. Sometimes looks better, but most of the time looks about the same.
Yeah, it's only marginally better. No, I mean he's not done anything special. I'm not blaming him for any of this, but to suggest that he would be a better fit, and you implied it earlier, Joe. There's a lot of big name coaches that wouldn't want this job right now. I mean, sure, the Penguins are a respected organization. They'll pay you well, and they have a great history. But most coaches, like big-time coaches who can name their job, they're going to look at this situation and say, I can't make that team win anytime soon. Why would I go there?
Yeah. No, this is like a job that I would beg Barbecue Bruce not to take.
That's right.
Like you're just going to get fired, Bruce. I mean, like this job is a 3-year. If Sullivan walks out tomorrow, the next coach is still not going to be the coach that wins with this team.
Good point.
Probably not.
That's a really good point. And Madden even said, I saw him on Twitter saying, like, why fire him now, honestly, because you're not going to get the good coach now. Maybe in the offseason, maybe. So, yeah, it's a mess. But it's all not that bad, Penguins fans. I
had a great time at the games. I brought friends. It was their first game. They loved it. Yep. It's still a fun time. It's still a great night out at the arena. And you still get to see Sid and Gino. And if you don't think, enjoy it now. I think I said this a couple of years ago when I saw the decline, feeling the decline, seeing it like, hey, you know what? Enjoy this now, because I remember when Mario was gone. It's like he's gone, and Sid and Gino, they're not going to pull a resurrection like Mario and come back in 4 years. Like that'll be it.
And they're also not leaving us with Yager. Mario left, and we still had Yager. It was like, oh, okay. It's like
and
that's a great point.
When Mario retired for good in 2005, he already had Sid there. So this is a different situation. But I always tell people, Don't take Crosby and Malkin for granted, even as they age, and especially in Malkin's case, not the same player. That you will miss seeing them play when they're gone, and on many nights they are still worth the price of admission.
And hey, the next 4 games are at home, and the captain's sitting at $5.99. So goal number 600 can likely happen at home. Thank God.
Hey, Bunning, when Sid has the puck, stay on side.
Honest to God.
That was a highlight reel goal. What are you doing?
Ruined it. Well, that'll do it for the first segment of 2 for Talk. And coming up, we'll do 3 up, 3 down across the league and then talk a little Steelers. But before that, I just saw a deer run across my street while this was happening and almost hit a car. If you're watching the video and saw my face, and it made me think of the Reg Dunlap of insurance and his great advice. That would be Mr. Bill Neofis.
That's what we call a segue. And Mr. Bill Neofis is a very passionate Penguins fan. I know he respects everything that Sully has done in Pittsburgh. I also know that's one fan who's ready for a new coaching regime. I only say that because I get the text from Bill about twice a week for the last 4 years about it. So I'm not saying that it bothers me when Bill texts me. I actually enjoy hearing from him. Like, oh boy, 3-0, they're losing already. I'm waiting for the Sully text. There it is. I know. Yes, Bill Neofis. He and his insurance group, they are the best. They're located in the North Hills of Pittsburgh. Very easy location to find. And as always, I just want to remind you, it doesn't matter about your stage of life. You can be buying your first home. You can be downsizing your retirement. The kids are off to college, whatever the case may be. They've got all of your needs met. They even have the best-in-class pet insurance, which is my favorite thing. The pet insurance for all the furry members of the family. You actually can't beat that. And Bill's an animal lover, so of course he wanted me to make sure to mention that. Fully licensed staff. They've been around over 60 years in Pittsburgh. They are committed to providing the proper insurance solutions for all of their members. So give the Neofis Insurance Group a call. It's 412-364-3388. They are the best.
Thank you, Mr. Neofis. On 3 up and 3 down across the league, we will start with the teams. Josh sends the teams, Joe sends the players, and we'll go up, and then we'll just go straight through the downs. So, Josh, you had Washington as your first up, and they're third in the Metro, and I mean they're I looked quickly. I mean they're like 6 or 7 points clear of a playoff spot. Other than playing the Penguins, they're doing quite well.
Well, yeah, it's not in their DNA to beat the Penguins, as we know, but they're pretty good, Joe. I thought they might be all right. I didn't think they would be this good. They just took care of Vegas, I think it was last night. They're having a really good road trip. Right after the Penguins beat them in Washington, they went to St. Louis and won like 8-1, I think it was. They getting really good ending, always turning back the clock. And they've got some young guys who can really play. It's just a nice blend of players. I have to give them a lot of credit for what they're doing, Joe.
That McMichael's so very good. And really good. Conor McMichael and Ovi hat trick. What more can you say?
Yeah.
They're getting saves. They're getting saves.
I like that goalie. I don't like him on the Capitals, but I think he's a good goaltender.
I do too. No, they're a good team.
Yeah. Next up, you have out of the last 10, the 7-2-1 Toronto Maple Leafs. Is this the year? Is Berube the guy that did it?
I mean, it's in play. I think they're a contender. They've had a lot of injuries too. They've been banged up, Joe. They just keep kind of going along and winning. I think the Chief is probably going to bring some good defensive habits to that team. Every time I watch them play, though, they're playing high-level hockey. I think they're really good.
Well, he's made the bottom 6 play defense, and there's for the first time in Toronto, they have like an extra 2 forwards. So right. You can play, hey, I didn't see you hustling enough. I didn't see you forechecking, back checking. So you're gonna sit up in the press box. He's using it well. He's calling people out in the press. And in the old days, Sheldon Keefe used to have to apologize when he called people out. But Ruby doesn't apologize.
Nor will he.
He's getting the best out of guys. And the one guy I put on my up list is McCann. Bobby McCann. He called him out, and ever since then, McCann, he sat him and he called him out. And ever since then, McCann's putting points on the board.
Yeah,
it's all you can ask for. Everyone's playing a couple inches taller and a couple pounds heavier with Berube behind the bench, and turn back the clock, but Johnny T looking a lot faster than he used to.
He's having a good year. Yeah. By the way, real quick, you mentioned Berube. It's one of my favorite stories in hockey. I don't know if we've mentioned it before. 1989, the Penguins are playing the Flyers in the playoffs. Flyers ultimately won the series in 7. You'll recall Robbie Brown and Phil Bourque got together for the game-winning goal in overtime in Game 3, I believe it was. I think it was before Game 4 at the Spectrum, right after that game. Berube lines up in the opening faceoff dot against Phil Bourque. And he said, hey, we're going to fight and I'm going to kick your ass. And Borky thought, oh, God, I got to fight him. So he fought him and got his ass kicked, I only bring that up because every time I see Craig Berube, used to be in St. Louis, now in Toronto, he and Borky are always yucking it up before games, like joking about that story, which is like the biggest hockey thing ever to do. Like, hey, we beat the hell out of each other. Let's joke about it 35 years later. So every time I see Berube's face, I just think of that story.
I remember Berube doing us a favor as a Flyer. I think they were playing Washington. I forget exactly who. It was a Game 4, and he just took a stupid penalty that turned the whole tide around, and it ended up costing Philly the series. And anytime someone in the playoffs takes a stupid penalty that costs a team the series, I call it the Berube. I love him as a coach, but I always call that the Berube penalty.
It's just amazing. He teaches such structure and discipline as a coach, and he's really good. Because he certainly didn't play that way at all, did he?
And Joe, any Penguins come to mind whenever you think of a Berube?
Simone and the Simone, and also another drinking game is, of course, my other favorite midget, Erod. Although I've remotely let Erod off I'm not as angry at Erod as I used to be.
Yeah. Next up on the number 3 on your up list is the Dallas Stars, who, winners of 3 straight and absolutely smoked the Penguins on Monday night.
To see them in person, granted the Penguins were pathetic that night, but Dallas is really good. I just think they're the most balanced team in the National Hockey League. Good luck finding a weakness on that roster. They got veterans, they got young guys, they got goaltending, they got a great blue line. They've got 4 lines that can score. They've got star power. I'm waiting for them to win the cup one of these years, Joe, because it would be a shame if they didn't. That's how good I think they are.
Oh, absolutely. I'll tell you, when it reminded me of the 90s Penguins, not the Sid Gino Penguins, the 90s Penguins, when they just had too many guys that were better than our guys. I mean, not the analysis of Mason Marchment had 2 goals, I think, against us. Mason Marchment was like the 8th or 9th best player on their team. And he's knocking Brian Rust as like our 3rd best player. Right. He's right around Rusty. It's like he's like Rusty is a little better, a little more veteranish, but he's right. He's better than Raquel. I guarantee you that.
Just an impressive hockey team. Everything about them. They're not really exciting. They're just better than you. That's just who they are.
Now, on the way down, Chicago, you have listed, Josh, losers of 2 straight, maybe kind of coming back to earth a little bit.
You expect a team in Chicago's position to take a little bit of a jump from last year. Bedard in his 2nd year, you've got some young guys in the lineup, and I'm just not seeing it. I think that's still a really, really bad hockey team, and Bedard's not putting up the numbers that I think we were expecting, Joe.
Well, they're whispering slow on Bedard, and they're also whispering that he's not going to make the 4 Nations.
That would be something, but he might not. He's not. Last I looked, he only had 3 goals, I think.
Well, I mean, he's not top 9. Now, who do you want on the 4th line? Do you want him or do you want Sam Bennett? I'll take Sam Bennett all day.
Well, that's right. I mean, you have to have people who can kill penalties. You have to have people who can fill a certain role. It's not just the 12 best forwards.
Right.
I don't know. Bedard, listen, he's 19. I realize that, so I'm hardly writing him off. He had a wonderful rookie season, but hasn't looked quite the same to me this year.
Well, when you look at Lafreniere, and he's turned into a top tier winger on arguably one of the 2 or 3 best teams in the East. So I'm never going to say it's all Bedard, but Bedard's come in with no one thought Lafreniere was Jesus or Sid.
Right.
They all thought Bedard was. So it's and most number ones jump in their 2nd year. He hasn't.
Yeah, that's one thing we saw with Sid. Like there was a noticeable jump in his 2nd year. And I've actually asked him about that. And he said, I was 19. He said, "You're still getting so much stronger at that age." He said, "I just felt faster and stronger on the ice." And he looked at Bedard. That really hasn't been the case. And I'm not saying he's not going to go on to be a great player. I'm sure he is. I think he might be in terms of first overall picks. And again, he's 19. Who knows? I think he's more Tavares or Stamkos than he is Crosby or McDavid or Ovechkin. That's not a knock. We always want to anoint the next, first overall pick as the greatest player ever. I don't know. I'm not sure he's that. And just when you watch him play, as gifted as he is, and he is, he's just so small. I mean, that's got to hurt him against certain teams.
Well, I mean, I would sign up for Stamkos if I was Chicago any day of the week.
Sure.
I mean, fifth best player of the generation?
Yes, but there's still a step down. He's not. When Bedard entered the league, we got to put him against Sid on opening night on ESPN. And I don't know.
No, 1,000%. I'm just saying. I think Chicago would sign for that right now, though.
I would hope so.
Yeah,
nothing wrong with that.
No, I mean, I know I love Stamkos, but I'll tell you, I didn't pick him for the downs. But you could take Bertuzzi. Bertuzzi hasn't helped him whatsoever. Tyler Bertuzzi, and in Taylor Hall. People are saying that he's like ready, but they're healthy scratching him. So,
speaking of first overall picks,
yeah,
they're not all Sid. They're not all Sid. Like I do hate that about I know the media machine's got to do their thing, but I mean, and it just gives you an appreciation as a Penguins fan what we witnessed. To see two players like Sid and Gino come in, live up to the expectations and exceed them, and even win one cup, let alone three. So, yeah, I don't know. Chicago's a long way off from that. Next up on your down, you've got Detroit. Don't tell your friend Frazier there, Joe, but Detroit 3-6-1 in their last 10. Although
Lalonde is on the hot. He's like on a Bugs Bunny cartoon. That seat's getting hot.
It should be. I mean, what's going on there? They're having a rough. They got beat up their last couple of road games. I think. What's going on? I don't know if Steve Yzerman's ever going to feel any pressure there because he's Steve Yzerman, and I get it. But the Yzerman plan was not supposed to take this long. And when I watch them play, I'm just not impressed.
There is a groundswell of anti-Yzerman sentiment amongst my puck-off co-host and all his family and friends back in Detroit. And I just heard from other media sources that, it's not as, they want something to happen. But, everyone guesses wrong on goaltending. He just guessed wrong for the last decade or however long he's been there.
Yeah, no, it's an issue. I don't know. I don't see much progress with that team. I didn't really like
I don't either.
I didn't like the summer they had. You could kind of feel it coming. I don't think they're a playoff team again. That can't go over well in Detroit. You talk about hockey cities with high expectations. We talk about that in Pittsburgh a lot. It's very much the same in Detroit.
Especially with Boston maybe falling back. There's room for one team.
I know they look vulnerable.
And God damn, it's gonna be Ottawa. You gotta be kidding me. It's like, I was hoping for Frazier.
Ottawa would be your worst nightmare. Next up on the down list, another team that maybe hey, we wouldn't mind seeing them sneak in. The Buffalo Sabres, 2-4-1, and they over the last what's that? 7. Yeah, they're like, well, my math is off. 2-4-1 over the last 7, and Lindy Ruff, it's getting a little rough up there in Buffalo.
I feel like I mentioned Buffalo a lot on my disappointing list, but I much like Detroit, I keep waiting on them to take a jump. Every time I watch them play, I'm like, that's not a very good hockey team. Like that's a team with some serious flaws, even though we like the talent they have assembled on their blue line. It's just the same old story in Buffalo. Once again, I feel like Buffalo and Detroit are kind of mirror images of one another.
That is the truth. I mean, I think Detroit has more high-end talent up front. I think Buffalo has more high-end talent in the back. Mm-hmm. But the bottom line is they're going to let Ottawa pass them in that glorious. There's always the big four, and then the next three, and then the Habs. Well, now they're letting Ottawa jump above them in the next three, and that's not where you want to be.
At least Ottawa's fun to watch. I mean, they have their issues, but boy, they're exciting. They can score.
They're only fun to watch for me when someone runs Giroux.
Well, now going to Joe's 3 up and 3 down. You got Brandon Tanev, 4 goals, 2 assists in his last 5 games. Really coming on strong. And we always love to see the Brandon Tanev take off. We loved him here, so we like to see him do well elsewhere.
Oh, there's still people pining for him and McCann. Like that would have turned everything around this year.
Yeah. What could have been if we didn't let them go? The Jared McCann one, that's going to haunt us for a while, I think.
Well, that said, the Penguins could use those two, and then it certainly was not Ron Hextall's greatest work, losing both of those guys in the same week. And I love Tanev. Tanev was exactly what the Penguins needed, and not so much now because they need so much now, but back when he left, that's the one guy who played the style that they need more of. When he's healthy, man, the guy helps you win. He's exactly who you want in your bottom 6.
I don't want to jinx him, but he's been healthy this year. Knock on wood. Love Turbo.
Yep. Bobby McCann's number 2 on your up list. He's got 3 goals in his last 3 games, and you mentioned he kind of, is rebounding here in Toronto.
Yeah, he was. It's one of these fan bases where they always want more, and for the fringe guys, it's kind of like our situation maybe 4 or 5 years ago when we know who the stars are. Can we get more of the bottom 6? Well, McCann is in that bottom 6 up in Toronto, and he's doing the forechecking that you need to do, and he's doing the back checking that Berube demands, and he's putting the puck in the net. So,
listen, we know he has the star power, and we also know that alone is not in the playoffs. It's not. Whether it's because of those stars or because you just need more, probably a little bit of both. He's a good hockey player, and I like his game a lot. And like I said earlier, I like Toronto's game a lot. I think they're just kind of quietly going about their business right now. They're doing it very well.
Yep. Number 3, you got Elias, or as I like to refer to him, Elias Pettersson. Anytime I see that name, I always pronounce it Elias because of Patrick. But 4 goals and 2 assists in his last 5 games, Joe.
Well, because he was on the milk carton for the first 15 games, and all the whispers, and we think there's a lot of media and a lot of intrigue or whatever, just a lot of people just on you in Pittsburgh, and we know it's in Vancouver it's a million times worse. Oh, yeah. And I'm just kind of happy for the guy. He's kind of getting out of the slump.
He wasn't good in the playoffs last year either, really. That was JT Miller and Brock Besser kind of carrying the show. Pettersson is so gifted. And Rick Tocchet. If anybody can get a lot out of him, it's Rick Tocchet. And I've heard whispers about Pettersson. He wasn't in great shape when he came to camp, stuff like that. Who knows what's true and what isn't. But I do know if the Canucks are going to be a viable Stanley Cup contender, that guy's got to perform. He has to put up better than a point per game. He certainly has the talent to do so. Nice to see him heating up. He's actually one of my favorite players in the league to watch. When he's good, he's really, really good, and he gives them, I think, a championship level dimension potentially.
He's another guy too that was very little when he came into the league, and I'm not saying he grew 5 inches and gained 30 pounds, but he learned how to play in the league among giants. He used to get hit so hard. People like, he's a $140. How's he get that? People in penalty got hit too hard in Vancouver. They were crying for him. It's like he's behind the net. He's gonna get hit. It's it's not girls touch him. It's come on now.
Now on the way down, Ryan Reeves. There's plenty of reasons Ryan Reeves, but I looked at his last game. He had 3 minutes and 54 seconds of ice time. That does not speak of someone who's playing well at the moment.
Well, in one of the 2 or 3 biggest games of the year so far for the Toronto Maple Leafs, he took an absolutely absurd penalty by hitting Darnell Nurse in the head on a cheap shot, and they had to kill a 5-minute major. Berube doesn't need that. He doesn't want that. And if you're barely making the team, don't take stupid penalties like that. They don't need that in Toronto. And in the way the league's going, they don't need him around.
No. In my very limited dealings with Reeves, the 3 or 4 months when he was a Pittsburgh Penguin, I think he has a very high opinion of himself. I think he enjoys putting on the show that is Ryan Reeves, whether it be dropping the gloves or the big hits, the dirty hits, whatever. It doesn't help you win. He's not a winning hockey player, in my opinion. No.
He should have been a wrestler. He should have been a wrestler. He likes stage fights and showing off.
He'd be great at it. Sid and Gino liked having him around, and I get that. I think there was a sense of protection when he was around. Nobody was going to mess with that guy. But he's not helping you win, and people gave Sully a hard time for playing him 3 minutes a night. I think Sully knew. The guy was hurting them on the ice, and he just didn't want to deal with it.
Yep. Next on your way down, Linus Ullmark. Now, he does have a shutout squeezed into his last 5 games, but outside of that, the other 4 games, he has an .839 save percentage.
So, that's Tristan Jarry territory there.
Yeah. Something tells me that getting a B- in your save percentage is not good for your hockey team.
They're calling for his backup. They decided he was going to be the answer. They're looking for his backup to play.
I am tired of trying to figure out goaltenders from one year to the next, but I think there's a real problem with him. He has not been good, and a lot of times a team can make a goaltender look a lot better than he is, and I think that might have been the case in previous seasons with him.
Perfect segue, Mr. Tusick.
Yeah, it's perfect because it looks like Boston had the 2 choices, and really they couldn't have been right either way. They were going to be wrong because Jeremy Swayman is at your bottom here, an 888 save percentage on the season. And the last game, I don't know, he only gave up 7 goals, so that's worse than Tristan Jarry.
Korpisalo looks better than Swayman right now, and that is saying something because I had to live with Korpisalo out here in LA. Korpisalo doesn't stop very many things.
No, Swayman's a very wealthy man now, and that there are different guys who are impacted in different ways with the big money contract. Brian Rust didn't have a great year after he signed his big deal, and he basically admitted he was trying too hard. Like he felt like he needed to justify the amount of money he was making, and that actually made it difficult for him to just relax and play. Maybe that's what's happening here. Maybe he's in a slump. I just think the Bruins are not on the trajectory as the Penguins, quite as violently as them. They're on their way down. They had a really good team for a really long time, as we all know. It's difficult to maintain that. And you don't want to be paying your goaltender too much money if you're in a little bit of a rebuilding situation. Well, that's too bad because the Bruins are looking right at it.
Yeah.
Another team where the GMs are legends. I always say watch when you hire a legend because it's really hard to fire them.
Yes, it is.
And then it's awkward forever.
That's why you don't ever want Sid to be the GM of the Penguins someday. You just want him to be team owner like Mario or something. That's a little different.
Absolutely.
We just like the idea that we're going to run into them in Giant Eagle, like have Sid be in his box. We might run into him in Giant Eagle, and he lives here. Yeah, but
I bet Sid's a Whole Foods guy.
Yeah, I can imagine. It makes a lot more sense. Yeah, but it's weird too. It's weird to see just Boston in general, Patriots and Bruins, both kind of, falling off. It's a different time up there.
Enjoying it.
Yeah. Well, that'll do it for the second segment of Two for Talking. We'll come back. The Steelers had a great traditional AFC North rival game against the Baltimore Ravens. We'll talk about that on the third segment of Two for Talking. Welcome back to the third segment of Two for Talking. And gentlemen, it was the Baltimore Ravens game that was going to finally change the trend, and it was going to be a 35-38 shootout. That's what everybody thought. And then of course it ended up being 18-16. The difference was a 2-point conversion that the Steelers snuffed out. And I got a lot of notes on the game, but I mean, I thought it was ugly, but I thought it was great. I enjoyed the game.
I thought it was Steelers Ravens as God intended, a 2-point game on a gray afternoon on the north side in November. It was perfect. It was not boring. I think the Steelers just have a way of getting people to play the style of game they want. Like they just pull you into it, and you can't help it. You're going to end up playing that kind of a game. It's going to be a close physical game. That's exactly what they're comfortable with. wasn't pretty. I think their offense still needs a lot of work, as we all know. But, Joe, they've got a defense. And that defense, boy, no one else in the league can stop Lamar Jackson, but they sure can.
An absolutely perfect point to make, Josh. That was a masterpiece by the defense.
Yeah.
They didn't get the offense didn't score a touchdown, and they won against the MVP of the league offensively. I mean, Baltimore had like 3 big plays. That was it. I don't mean big 80-yard plays. I mean just three over 20-yard plays. They really shut down the run pretty much. I know they hit some. I guess at least they went away from it. He had a good average, but they shut Lamar Jackson down, and then when they went for 2, they stuffed him. I mean, the biggest play. How about Queens? We talked about Queen last week. The Queens fumble was nuts. Yep. The white kid linebacker's interception was nuts.
Unbelievable play.
Unbelievable.
And so they're watching the game like, why is Minka celebrating? What the hell's going on? I didn't even see it.
I love the big tight end 80. I love his couple catches across the middle. They were fantastic.
Mount Washington.
I still don't know what happened to our new guy didn't play, but Pickens played great. And Russ was under fire. He didn't run backwards any more than he had to. I heard a lot of people out there, a lot of national people, maybe they have to turn back to what? Yeah. I thought there's no way Fields wins that game. But Fields could have made a couple of nice plays, although he slid too early.
Yeah, he doesn't need to do that again.
No, but I mean, other than Russ throwing the end zone, I thought Russ played a really solid football game, and they would not have won if Fields was the quarterback.
He was under siege. I mean, like you said, the offensive line was getting pushed around. In pass protection,
especially in the first half. Like I didn't think Russ played great, but he certainly made some plays in the second half. You just feel more comfortable when he's running the show. He just has that veteran calm about him. Listen, the Steelers' offense has its issues, and we know that. And yet, I found myself coming away from this game kind of encouraged. Like you can beat that team without scoring a touchdown. And Mike Tomlin teams and by the way, Tomlin, I've been critical of him a lot over the years. I think he's having a great year. Every game I say, boy, he coached a good game. He didn't do anything stupid like that. That was good. I give him so much credit, and his teams usually get better in the second half of the season. They usually really improve down the stretch. So I'm not saying the Steelers are the favorite to represent the AFC in the Super Bowl. I don't think they are. I think Kansas City and Buffalo are probably the 2 best teams. But they're making things interesting. And if they can get a high seed in the playoffs, I'm telling you, you don't want to come to Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania in January with the way that defense is playing. They are built to win that time of year. So I get a little excited about the Steelers in Pittsburgh. You can just feel it. This is a Pittsburgh kind of team, just the way they play.
That's the best our secondaries looked in years.
Oh, yes.
The kid they got in the trade from the Panthers.
Oh, the Panthers,
he's a good cornerback. Like they weren't picking and Porter, he bounced back this year. He bounced back this game. Minka made some big plays. The other safety,
Elliott's a stud. I like him.
I thought the D line Cam is like jumped Ponce de Leon. I really think the defense played remarkable yesterday. What just an absolute masterpiece. And like I said, I loved it. Russ throwing over the middle of the tight end a couple of times. Russ just made some big time throws that he had to make, and he made them. Was it a perfect game? Could he have thrown the ball away earlier a couple of times? Could he have done this? Yeah, he could have. But woulda, coulda, shoulda. He won the game.
Yep.
It's Steelers Ravens. Like it's not going to be a pretty game. Like we just I don't know why. It's just the way it is. It's been that way for 25 years. You're just happy to emerge with a win when you're playing against them. Now you got the 2-game lead on them in the loss column. It's a huge game for them.
And they, like you were to follow up on, your Tomlin comment. A lot of people I'll see all week long. We're saying a lot of pundits were saying, well, you're going to have to outscore him this week. You're going to have to outscore him. And I kind of agreed. I was like, yeah, you're going to really have to, rack up. It's a race to 35 points. And then I was like looking at the stats afterwards and I was like, damn it, maybe Tomlin is a genius because they only had the ball for 23 minutes. The Ravens did. And I'm like, oh, That's how you keep them to 16 points. Is if you don't let the best offense in the league have the ball for 2/3 of the game. Because they ran the ball a ton, and we weren't running, wild yesterday, but we ran the ball in a controlled way to control the clock. And the other thing too is you just go 1 for 4 in the red zone with a touchdown, and the game's a blowout. Like, it's a different conversation if that happens.
And also, it's one of my favorite stats. Actually, I was so bored this morning, I'd look it up because I knew I was onto something. If you believe in halftime adjustments, and that being a reflection of the coaching staff, the Steelers have given up 13 points in the third quarter in 10 games. 13. That's incredible. They just shut down games in the second half. I know they're not built to come from behind, and that's if you're going to beat them, you better jump on them early though, because the longer a game goes, when it's tight, they just physically wear you down. They have a quarterback who's great in clutch moments. And listen, we've seen a lot of great defenses in Pittsburgh over the years. So I'm not going to compare them to some of the all-time greats that we've seen in 2008 or 2005 or the 70s or the mid-90s. But this is a really, really good defense. In an era when everybody's trying to win with offense, they do things differently. They do things their own way. 8-2 speaks for itself.
And I think
1,000%. But Naj had a great game.
Pretty good. He played. He runs hard. I'm saying we didn't run 180 yards on them.
No. But they controlled the game on the ground. They controlled the line of scrimmage on the run game on both sides of the ball. But I have a little question of I think if we play the kid we traded for, I think we can come back. I'm waiting for him. Just have him go deep every time. He's going to take guys away from Pickens. Why do you have to have that other guy, Austin? I'm not sold on him. He seemed to drop a lot of balls, and I would rather see Pickens and the new guy and Muth and number 80 out there. So this way you chip both tight ends. You're going to have some more pass protection. And all those guys can catch the ball then. I would just send that kid deep every time.
Yeah, I'm a little surprised. I think he only played a couple of snaps yesterday, which I thought was bizarre. But there's room for growth in the Steelers offense. Freiermuth's had a pretty quiet season, you're right. Hopefully Williams can make a difference. But, boy, George Pickens. I know there were some issues last season with him not playing hard. And listen, George is a special kind of character. You don't want to get on his bad side, I don't think. He's got some emotional outburst issues, but my God, is he talented. I mean, you could not cover him one-on-one. It's a huge weapon for the Steelers.
He's third in the league in receiving yards.
Is he now? Wow. Yeah. See, I didn't even know that. That's impressive. And I agree. Naj runs so hard. And Jaylen Warren, too. I thought he was really good the last couple of weeks. He's a perfect change of pace back. He really is. I think they handle Harris and Warren perfectly with the amount of touches they get. They keep both of them fresh. The Steelers are in an interesting spot. They're only a game behind the Chiefs for the 1 seed. I know it's still over a month away, but that Christmas afternoon game in Pittsburgh is looking awfully big, and I hope Netflix handles it better than they did the Tyson fight, because my TV kept freezing every 30 seconds. It was awful.
Lord knows I have a love-hate relationship with field goal kickers. But Boz, remember when it was people say it was a tough place to kick? Yeah. Boz is knock on wood, man, killing it now.
Nobody could make a 50-yard field goal in that place for a decade.
Now it's
Justin Tucker, blowing up and missing two. Did you see him in post game when he said the conditions weren't ideal for kicking? And I'd be like, dude, do you realize the other kicker went 6 for 6?
Made a 57-yarder.
I think he went to Jari's media coach.
He must have. So Boswell's unbelievable, though. I mean, he is just.
I don't want to jinx it.
I know. But the Steelers special teams in general, punter's been really good. Austin had the big punt return a few weeks ago. They're putting Danny Smith, the special teams coach, on TV 30 times a game, and I love it. He's chomping on his gum, dropping F-bombs. Everyone's all excited with him. That's what a special teams coach should look like.
The one pylon replay that they were showing to see if they got first down or not, there was a piece of Danny Smith's bubblegum wrapper right in front of the camera. I was like, it's
Perfect.
but yeah, not to get too Yinzer excited, but if you're one of those delusional Yinzers that maybe placed a little bit of money on the Steelers to win the division and then win the Super Bowl, I will tell you, I don't know what else Vegas is saying, but they know something's up. Obviously, statistically for the division, it's in our favor. But my offer to cash out on my division bet is double what I bet. So
you're talking about yourself. I could sense it.
Yeah,
no,
it's
they're good.
The Super Bowl bet. Usually, like if you've done that, you bet like a team to win the championship, and then like within a week, it's like half of what you bet is your cash out option. Currently, it's at the same amount that I bet it at. So interesting. I think Vegas knows something. And yeah, as long as Netflix doesn't have, like a interview with Patrick Mahomes where you get to see his full ass at the end, like Mike Tyson. And but yeah, I don't know. There's a lot of hope in Yinzer land.
As there should be. Listen, they're good. I don't know if they're Super Bowl good, but they're good. There's not a lot of weaknesses on this team.
Speaking of Yinzerland, did you see Coach Coward breaking the tables like the Bills Mafia on the pregame show?
I did.
He got airborne.
Yeah, he did.
Yeah, that was fantastic. And then there was a follow-up where a dude wanted that black guy's red jacket. Did the fan ever get it? They never showed the did you catch that?
No, Nate Burleson, he had the red jacket on there.
Yeah, he had the crazy red coat, and he told a fan said, if the Buffalo wins, I want that coat. He goes, if Buffalo wins, you can have that jacket. You can have this jacket.
Well, I hope he gave it to him. I hope he's a man of his word.
Yeah.
Now, Joe, I don't know if you saw this, but you kind of mentioned it earlier, Josh, and we'll just end with this. Josh tweeted out earlier today that, how the Penguins have given up the Steelers have, in the third quarter only given up 13 points, which is 1.3 per game. The Penguins have given up 1.25 goals per game in the third period, which, speaks a lot about where both teams are at the moment.
Although they're worse in the second period. So the second period, as Joe mentioned, that is their worst period. So,
that's the Steelers' long change as well.
Well, hey, that'll do it for us here on Two for Talking. You can, follow us on social media. You can email the show, contact@twofortalking.com. And, hopefully we get a Steelers win up in Cleveland. And hopefully we're talking about Mr. Captain getting number 600 on the next week's episode. So that'll do it for us. And we'll talk to you guys next week.